is Latonya Matthews, and I am the founder of No More Ministries. I am an author of Solid No More and Fragmented to Whole, and I am currently in the process of writing my third book, which is The Dirt Was Necessary. I just want to tell you a little bit about my story. So I'm going to back up and go to my childhood. Growing up in East Dallas was pretty hard for me. I was raised with my dad and my mom, and that's where I first experienced neglect, abuse, and learned how to do drugs and alcohol at a very young age. I can remember as far back as my dad having me and my brothers and sisters in the room, and I guess he wanted to be alone, so he would give us a 6-pack of beer and put in a porn, a VHS tape. And I know that's old, but he allowed us to watch porn and drink beer. And that was his way of keeping us quiet or keeping us away from him. Well, that started me on a journey of doing drugs. Once I turned 13, my mom died, and I was left to basically fend for myself. My dad shipped me off to California, and I lived with my aunt and my cousins. Well, there I guess I called it perfecting my craft. I would drink every day. I learned how to smoke, learned how to do all type of drugs, and then I was introduced to sex. So that's at the age of 14. That's when I decided to get a boyfriend, and went from there. 15 years old, I became pregnant with my first child, and had to learn how to take care of a kid when I was still a kid myself. Doing that, it was pretty hard. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know what to do, and I knew I had to grow up pretty quick. I remember in April, right before Easter, I was in a shootout. I was almost 8 months pregnant, and a person drove by and just started shooting up the laundromat where me and my cousins were. And I remember running down the alley trying to get away from the bullets. And I ran and I fell on my stomach. And I knew then that if I didn't do something to change my life, that my baby wasn't going to make it. So I made the decision to pack up and move back to Dallas. It didn't happen right away because, again, I was young. I didn't have a job, no money. So I just, I thought about it. Like, what can I do? How can I do? And the only thing that I knew I could do is once my baby was born, I had to put myself out there, so to speak. I had to, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Had to sell myself. So I was able to find a guy that got basically wanted sex for money. And so I did that until I got enough money to get me a bus ticket to come back to Dallas. I called my dad and I told him I wanted to come back to get on my feet. And of course, I knew that was probably the worst thing I ever done, was to come back to his house. But that's all I knew. I wanted to get out of California and get to a place where I can raise my son. So after that, after I made the money, I made it back to Dallas, moved in with my dad. And I was only there maybe 2-3 months, and realized that nothing about him changed. He would send me into my room to sleep with me, to get paid. He even had his girlfriend at the time to try to give me pills to keep me drugged up. He just did a number of things, and I couldn't take it. And I'm looking at my son, and I'm like, this is no life for a baby. To grow up in situations like that, this is not the life for him. So I moved out. I moved in with one of my sisters on my dad's side. And that started a whole nother thing. That was, it went downhill from there. I had an older brother. He told me he would take care of me and help me get on my feet and do some things. And I trusted him because I had no one else to trust. No one on my mom's side, stepped up to help. So I had no reason to believe that he wouldn't help me. Well, I was only there at my sister's house for a short period of time when my brother decided to make his move. My sister left and left me alone with my brother, and it was another guy there. I can't even remember who it was. But I asked him to watch my baby. I went in, I took a shower, and before I knew it, somebody popped the lock on the bathroom door. And my brother came in, and he just began to rape me. And his words were, if you tell anybody, I will kill you, I will kill your baby, I will kill your family. And I believed it. I said, well, you know what? I won't. So until I was able to fend for myself or get my own place, I knew that every day my sister leaves, that I knew what I was going to look forward to. So he brought him, he brought his friend, and so that's what I had to do. I had 17 years old, I had to deal with my brother sleeping with me, his friend sleeping with me, over and over and over. And one day, it's like a light came on. I went in and applied for an apartment. It was in South Dallas. My very first apartment I applied, and less than a week, they approved me. And it was like, you don't have to pay no rent. In fact, we pay you to help with your light bill. And I thought that was amazing. So me and my son, I waited till my brother was gone. We packed up and I moved. I didn't tell nobody where I was moving to. And we got us an apartment. No furniture, no nothing. We were just bare floor. But I knew if I didn't do it for him, he was going to grow up in the same way that I did. So dealing with that, I just end up getting in abusive relationships after I got my own because, again, I believe I was looking for love, but looking for it in all the wrong places. I don't know. I wanted that fatherly love, but my dad wasn't the type to give me that love. It was more of a perverted type of love that he wanted to offer. So I got into different relationships and experienced abuse after abuse after abuse. And that became the norm for me. That became normal to experience that. And so it was like, if I got with someone, dated someone, if they didn't abuse me or talk down on me, then that meant they didn't love me. My whole perception of relationships was so distorted that I knew I was on the road to going down, and it wasn't going to be good. It was going to be ugly. But in fact, I still did it. We made it through that. I ended up getting pregnant again. And my brother thought it was his baby because, again, he never stopped. He found me. He never stopped sleeping with me. And I never told anyone. I just allowed it to happen because, again, I didn't want him to kill my family. So I had that baby. I was with the father for a short period of time and dealing with my brother, sleeping with me, dealing with this guy beating me. It was so much. But again, I took it. I had my kids. I can remember one time my child's father took him to another state, and I was so devastated. That was the first time I literally tried to kill myself. I did an overdose and went to the hospital. Before the ambulance got me out the car, the man told me, he said, let me tell you something. There's nobody in this world worth you taking your life. Nobody. I never knew this guy, never knew him. He just said, you got to realize you got to live for you. Nobody else. You. If you kill yourself, what is your son gonna do? And I thought about that in the hospital. And I think that's what really saved me. Because I started living, I lived for my kids because I didn't feel like I was able to live for myself. So I made it my business to, if I live, I'm living for them. So they became my motivation. They became the reason why. I'm going to fast forward a little bit to maybe, I guess, 2006 or 7. I've grown. By then I've had 6 kids. I was married. I had two stepdaughters, and two bonus babies. But it was so much. I think I was maybe not pretending, but I had put on so much over the years that I think I reached my boiling point. And it was actually time for me to live for Latonya, so to speak. So I started dibbling and dabbling back in the world, wanting to see what I missed as a kid. I didn't have a childhood. It was kind of like I wanted to be a kid again. I didn't want no house. I didn't want no car. I didn't want no husband. I didn't want anything. And doing that, I set another thing in motion that was destroying my family. I left my husband. I left my kids. I left everything to go in the streets and to party. So I was, I guess, about 36, maybe 33. I began to party, I began to club, and I began to live my best life. But then realize that I was opening up a whole nother can of worms. The party style, going to clubs, swingers clubs, whatever it was, if it, the bad, the worse it was, I wanted to be a part of it. And then it was like having men after men after men, allowing myself to be in married couples' home, being their toy, just all types of. If you can think it and imagine it, I did it. I exposed myself to so much, and didn't realize that I left my family behind. But I kind of believe that I had to go through that in order to get to where I'm at today. I know on the road to that, I destroyed lives. I've hurt people, and it wasn't that I intentionally did it. It's like when you growing up and you have all these things that you are introduced to, you have all this porn, pornography, pervertedness, incest. You have all that going for you, and it's like it lay dormant for so long, but then it said, it got to the adult stage, and it's like, I want to come out. And when it came out like with a vengeance. And boy, did it come out. And I lost everything. I remember deciding to divorce my husband. Now, I did all this partying while I was married, while I was still in covenant with my spouse. But I decided to divorce him. So I divorced him. And once I did that, when I tell you, I lost everything. I was homeless with the kids. And that was a wake-up call. So what I had to do is I had to grab a hold to my faith. I had to grab a hold to God like never before. I couldn't get God for what somebody else knew him as. I had to find him out for who he is in my life. Who is God? Who is God to me? And I knew it was a God. I didn't have, nobody had to tell me, but I knew it was something greater. So I began to latch on to that. I latched on to him. I wrote my book, my first book, Silent No More, Breaking the Cycle of Abuse. I had to let people know that the more you keep that abuse in, the more it grows. And for me, it was like cancer, and it ate away at me from the inside out. This thing ate away at me. The incest. My dad wanted to sleep with me. My brother sleeping with me. It was so much. I had cousins trying to sleep with me. And I was so fed up to where I said, you know what? There got to be something else. It got to be. So I went on a fast. I believe it was like a 40-day fast. I fast. I prayed. I fast. I prayed. And that started me to develop my prayer life. And I didn't have to have a church to tell me to pray. I didn't have to have nobody tell me. I just prayed myself. God, it's like God came down himself and began to mold me and begin to cultivate me and begin to get me to that place to where I was totally dependent on him. And I would cry out, you know, when the kids would sleep, I would cry out. And I didn't stop doing a lot of things that I was doing, but I still grab a hold to him. So it was like I was trusting him, developing my faith, but still it was a part of me being pulled back into the world. So I had to, it's like I had good and evil just pulling away at me. And the more I prayed, the more I developed my relationship with God, the stronger I became. And when the enemy would come and try to pull me back, I was able to resist him because I had a foundation of prayer, a foundation of faith. And I remember being at a church in 2012 where the leader I was up under, he did some things, said some things, and it broke me. It tore me down. And I always say that ministry was a place where I went in free, but I came out in bondage. And I just said, you know, God, what is it? I cried out one day, what is it, God? What is it? Why me? Why I'm going through all this? Why I have to deal with this? Why me? You know, I got angry with God. And I began to question him. They say don't question God, but I did because I want to know. I need the answers. You know, I have kids. I have, you know, now I'm divorced. God, what do you want me to do? And I got my answer. He said, you need to leave that ministry. He said, you need to, his exact words was run and don't look back. You need to be discipled. So I'm like, I don't know about that. So 2013, October 2013, I ran. I said, God, where's this ministry you want me to be at? And he said, you need to be discipled. Look up discipleship ministries. And I was like, what? And I did that. I looked up discipleship ministries. I found it in Red Oak, Texas. I remember walking in on that Sunday, me and my kids, and I had my bag on me, and I'm dragging my suitcase. And I was so heavy. But when I walked in, he was talking about how some churches and ministers, they are mishandling the people. And I sat down in that service and literally I cried the whole service. And afterwards, the first lady of the church, she recognized me. I don't even know how she recognized me. She just asked me, was I Latonya? And I was like, yeah. She said, remember, we emailed a few weeks back. And I was like, are you serious? She said, yes, I lost your email. I couldn't find her email. She said, you emailed for prayer because you was going through. And she said, I prayed for you. And I just began to hug her and cry. And she said, the Lord said, you can rest. And that's all she said. And I cried on her like a baby. And literally that day, I knew my life was changing for the better. I still didn't have a stable place, but I remember walking by faith. I remember listening to God, and I paid attention. As I prayed, I watched, I listened, and he led me to Midlothian. He led me to Midlothian, Texas, and he said, you will know the place when you hear the train. And I thought that was strange. I'm like, hear the train? I don't understand that. So I'm looking at this house, and I was like, this is nice. I said, the area is quiet, and we sitting there, and she said, do you want it? I said, yeah, but I'm waiting for something. I walked around more, and I waited. The kids loved it, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we hear the train, and I just started screaming, and she was like, what? I said, this is it. This is the place. This is the place. He said, I will know the place when I hear the train, and she was looking at me like, what do you mean? I'm like, no. He said, I will hear the train, and I heard the train on the outside. And we literally was by the train tracks. So we moved in there, and it was literally God, because the man that wanted to rent the house, he was like, I can't pull up nothing on your credit because it's showing that you don't have no history of nothing. And he said, I know you do because you stayed somewhere else, but I can't even explain it. All I know is a God thing. It was God, and I always say he did it again because he always come through for me. I moved there, and my life began to turn. My book was published. It didn't take off like I wanted to take off because it wasn't about the money for me with this book. It was about exposing the enemy, exposing him for what he did to me. And if my life could help somebody else, then that's what I would do. So I began to pray over my book. I began to pray that it reach the hands of those that are hurting, that are broken, that have been through incest, that have been through rape, been through molestation, have the spirit of perversion lurking around them, spirit of abuse. I began to pray for those. So my book was geared towards getting the word out for people to be healed, delivered, and set free. And I believe that's what God has been doing. So in the midst of that, he ended up birthing out Fragmented to Whole, because I was broken. I was broken growing up in that home, seeing my mom get beat, watching my dad do what he did, had to fight my dad off for me, it was so much. So I was a broken woman. I had a little girl trapped inside that was broken. So it was like two of me broken. The little girl was broken. The grown-up was broken. So he had to take me through being fragmented and to cause me to become whole. And the only way that I was able to become whole is once I got into God's presence. Once I dug in and began to call upon the name of Jesus. Once I submitted myself to him, committed myself to him, surrendered to him. Once I gave God my all, that's when the healing process began to take place. And I'm honored because he didn't have to do it, but he did. And even now, as I sit here thinking about it, 2015, God turned me back around. He said, I'm taking you back. And I didn't understand, where are you taking me back to? Because, that was a dark place. But he said, I'm taking you back. He told me to go to my husband, my ex-husband. He said, go to him and tell him that I'm giving you back to him. If he receives you, then y'all get back together. If he don't, then I release you. And I thought that was strange. I said, because I don't want to be rejected. He said, I saved you because all the prayers that he prayed for you, I will not allow another man to reap the benefits of his prayers. Now that I was in church, living my life according to what the word of God says, my husband, he prayed for me while I was out there in the streets acting the fool, cutting the fool. He was still praying for me. He was still loving me. He was still covering me. And God is so mindful of us that he took the time to save me. Even when I was out there doing things, I didn't catch any diseases. I didn't get pregnant. I didn't get killed. I didn't kill somebody. He kept me. He didn't allow me to get too entangled with men, or men get too entangled or get too close to me, because he still was saving me. It's kind of crazy when you look at it. How did he save you? He saved me. He kept my sanity. He kept me to not get too caught up in what the world had to offer. And he did. He sent me back. He sent me back to my now husband, which was my then husband, which was my ex-husband. We laugh about it now, but that was the man that I married over and over and over again. And when I did that, we had a talk, and I was pouring my heart out to him. I was crying out, and he was not moved. He wasn't moved because, again, I heard him and I know it, but he did kind of laugh about it. He said, he'd been looking, and some of the things I shared with him, the Lord had already shared with him. So, we decided to make it work. Not that day, but he waited a little bit, and he came and told me, yeah, I'm coming back home. And I was like, that's how you gonna tell me you're coming back home? But I knew it was a God thing. And I'm honored that we did. We got remarried December the 31st, 2015, because we decided to say out with the old and in with the new. So we crossed over from what we did, the hurt I did to him, the hurt he caused me. We put all that aside because we knew that our marriage was greater. Our marriage, us being together and making it through, it's the true definition of what God wrote in the word, that what he put together, no man can tear apart. That means I couldn't tear it up. He couldn't tear it up, because God had literally orchestrated this marriage for such a time as this. We didn't understand then, and the things that we did, the things that we said, we didn't understand. But it's like now we come in to understand. Now to see that we're now first time home owners. We couldn't get none of it out there. We got cars that we really didn't even qualify for. One paid off. It's like I'm watching God do it over and over and over again. Coming from all that and see where I am now, I'm so elated, and him birthing another book in me, another ministry. I have another ministry, and at midnight, based off of Paul and Silas when they was locked in jail. So we come together and we'd have midnight prayer. And I have seen signs, miracles, wonders. I've seen pregnancies, wombs being open. It's so much in my new book. And I was like, I'm writing a book. I got things wrote down, but I'm like, God, you didn't give me a name. What is this book? What is the title going to be? And literally, he told me the dirt was necessary. I had to go through the dirt. He asked me years ago, are you willing to allow me to use your dirt? My God, your dirt to heal and open up other people's eyes, to heal them, to deliver them, to let the blind see, to let the deaf hear. Are you willing to allow me to use that ugliness, that ugly stuff that I allowed you to go through for such a time as this? Are you willing to let me use it for others? My life is an open book. My life literally is an open book, open to those that are ready, that are tired, that are sick and tired of being sick and tired of dealing with the things that they're dealing with. I'm here to tell you that there is hope. There is hope. As long as there is breath in your body, there is hope. And God sent me to be the one, to be the grave digger, to uncover you under that, to expose the enemy for what he's trying to do. You will live. You will survive. You will overcome, because I am the true definition of an overcomer. I am the true definition of that. And I just honor God. I honor him for what I've been through. It wasn't easy, but I was built for it. He created me for such a time as this to go through that. And I'm truly honored for that. I'm honored. I'm honored for that. My God. My God, I just thank God. Jesus, he did it. I'm here today because he did it. He did it. He took me from homeless, abuse, to this, living my best life. Silent no more, breaking the cycle of abuse. That's who I am. That's who I am. Minister Latonya Matthews, the author of Silent No More, Fragmented to Whole, and the Dirt Was Necessary. And it's to God be the glory.
Tell me a little bit about your mom and dad upbringing, and if you think how your father came up had anything to do with how he was.
Well, my mom, I can tell you my mom and dad just a little bit about it. My mom was actually 9 years old, and my dad was in his middle to late 30s when my mom was given to my dad. And people say, were y'all from Texas? Yes, we was right there in East Dallas. My granny allowed my dad to be with my mom. She was 9 years old. And so I will say that she was raped by my dad and molested, because you can't consent being 9 years old. You can't consent to that. And do I believe that he was his upbringing? I do. I believe that it's a cycle that repeated itself. I believe that he was molested, and so that made him turn around and not do it just to his kids. He did it to people. My dad was not a good person. I even looked up his arrest record. My dad had an arrest record so long, and he beat every charge because he was pretty big. He was known in East Dallas. He was a big time drug dealer. He was known for getting what he wanted. So my mom endured abuse. My mom endured getting beat. My mom endured all that. And when she wanted to break free, when she wanted to get her life together, he told her he would kill her. And he held true to that. He killed my mom and got away with it because so many people was afraid of him. So many people dare not say anything to him because they knew that it was consequences behind it. So yeah, it did.
Now, tell me a little bit about your brother, his upbringing. Did y'all grow up together? Or tell me about his upbringing and what makes you think why he acted the way he acted.
Well, I would think that my brother, I don't know why he did, because his mom, she was able to get away from my dad, and I believe that him and his siblings, they had a good life. But then he was kind of older, so I know he spent a lot of time with my dad. So, and I believe that spirits transfer, Because if he was spending time with my dad, then that mean my dad was probably showing him some things, teaching him some things, just as he did my baby brothers from my mom. So I believe that when he found out about what my dad wanted to do to me, and I truly believe they was in cahoots together. Well, if I can't get her, at least one of us will get her. Because my brother, he was in a bad accident and he got burnt in a house. Actually, my dad's house, it burnt down to the ground. I'm so grateful for that. I'm so glad that the house no longer stands. But my brother called me to the hospital when he was in pain, and he actually apologized to me. He apologized. He said, it was wrong for what I did to you and the things that I took you through. And he said, I'm sorry. And that lifted a burden because he acknowledged that he did it. He acknowledged it was wrong and asked for forgiveness. So I think him staying connected to my dad did that. I don't think it was his mom, because his mom raised the kids, and I think she did an awesome job by getting away from my dad and giving him a chance.
When your brother apologized, had you forgiven him at that point, or did your forgiveness come after that?
No, it was after, because when he first did it, I think I was a little cocky, like, yeah, you better, But as I got older and as I learned about the Lord, I realized that me forgiving him, it wasn't so much for him, but it was for me. I had to become free by forgiving him. So it was later on. I didn't right away. I just kind of like, whatever. But it was later on I did.
And what about your dad? Is he still living, for one, and did he ever apologize at any point?
No, and he's not living. I actually had to get him arrested a few years after, I think my sister was like 14, and I found out that he was molesting her and a number of things. And so I had to step up to the plate and get him arrested. And he eventually died in jail. But he didn't acknowledge anything. In fact, when I had to testify against him in court, he looked at me and told me that you ain't my daughter. And I was like, please tell me that's the truth, because I would be honored for me not to be your daughter. So yeah, he died in prison.
Now, what you went through as a kid, what do you think that did to your relationship with your own kids, as you start having children? How did that affect your relationship with your kids?
Well, I think it really affected in a negative way, because I was so consumed with me that I really didn't know how to take care of kids. I knew I loved them, but again, I never was able to express the love. They didn't get the hugs, they didn't get the kisses, they didn't get that affection. So they grew up not knowing what affection looked like. I guess I was more afraid that if I hugged them or kissed them, or my perception of affection was distorted. It was perverted. So instead of me giving them that, because I didn't know, I just didn't do it. I kind of like stepped away. And I think I saved it for the grandkids, because the grandkids get all of it now. So yeah, it was really, it showed them. Even now, I think my son was saying that they didn't know how to be affectionate, because I never showed them. Even my daughter told me, she said, you never was affectionate, you never was loving. We all think sometimes we hug each other, no, get away, that's gay, don't do that, it was like we just pushed each other away, because we never did it. We never really did it.
And they all familiar with your story now, and they kind of got a better perspective on why it may have been that way.
Yes, they do. Once the book came out, and my oldest one, because that was my firstborn, he kind of took it hard, because he wondered, like, why you didn't tell me, why you didn't share with me. And to be honest, I was trying to save them from that life, so I didn't want them to know. But now, the only thing I would have did different is share with them more once they was old enough, so that way it wouldn't have been a shocker when the book came out, and it wouldn't have kind of hurt them, because they was like, we didn't know you went through that, we didn't know this, you made it seem like everything was all good and all perfect. So I would have changed that by at least sharing it with them.
Now, I'm sure you understand that God takes us through some things, and once He gets our attention and we realize what was really going on, a lot of this stuff could go on for years. It can go on for decades. How do you feel knowing that you coming to grips with it and just dealing with it stopped a cycle that could have went on for decades?
Uh, I guess I was a little confused at first, but now I look at it, I consider it all joy. I consider it a privilege and an honor that he chose. It's like he handpicked me to go through those things because somebody else that went through that, they probably wouldn't have made it. They wouldn't have made it. They probably would have, anybody else that would have walked in these shoes probably would have snapped, crackled, popped, killed themselves or killed somebody else. And so and I only said, I guess in the beginning I'll say I didn't understand and I was probably angry at God versus now I really understand that I walked this walk. It's kind of like when Jesus came and he had to show us we can walk this earth. I'm going to show you how to walk it so that way you can walk it. So he did an example. It's like my life is an example that, yeah, you may have went through that, but there's always hope. There's always, and I always go back to the scripture, and we overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and the words of our testimony. So I had to do that so that I can have a testimony to tell people, because we only gonna overcome by people hearing it. You got to hear it, and you have to be able to tell it. So I'm honored, and it's a privilege that I was one of the chosen ones. Around the age of 25, I ended up meeting a lady by the name of Pastor Goff, and I went to her church, and that began the start of my healing process. Um, she took me in, she helped give me the word, she gave me the truth, and this woman treated me like her own daughter. Even to this day, she would tell me, the light is always on, baby girl. The light is always on. I'm always here for you. She's been there through my marriage. She was there when we renewed our vows after 5 years. She had been a very important part to me being still and being faithful in Christ. Most of the times when things happen to come up, that's my go-to person. I run and I call her. I got her. I don't even need her number on speed dial because I remember her number by heart, and that's how important she is. I don't. If I ever lose my phone, I know one number I can remember, and that's hers. She's my spiritual mother. She's a lot. She mean a lot to me. She mean a lot, and I need to let her know that more often. That she is the reason why I am where I'm at today, because she put that foundation in me, and she said it's the beginning of a foundation, and that foundation was not able to be shaken or broken, and I hold on to that today. The day I knew that I was fed up and I had to I call it get right, and get both of my feet planted in God. It was around October the 1st, 2013. I had just entered into a marriage with another man, and we got arrested. We got arrested. We went to jail, and after I got out of jail, I found out that the man that I married was not from God. He was actually a fugitive on the run. He had multiple cases pending. He was just not who he was. And when I got out of jail, I had to call my ex-husband to come bail me out. That's when my son did a lot of investigating to find out who he was. And I did. I sat on my floor in the house. I remember like it was yesterday. And I couldn't even cry. I couldn't even shed a tear. I just knew that one or two things was going to happen. I was going to either kill myself or I had to get real. And the first option was kill myself, but weeks prior I had punned my gun. And that's when I heard the Holy Ghost say, that's the reason why I had you to pun the gun, because I knew you would come to this day. But now get up, and it's time for you to walk, because you have to help the other women that he did this to. You are the one that's going to help them back off the ledge, help them not pull the trigger, help them get back into the will of God. So October the 1st, 2013, I made up in my mind that enough was enough. It's all or nothing. And I gave God my all. And I've been holding on to that, and I've been running for Jesus ever since and not looking back.
When God asked you to go back to your husband and apologize and ask him to forgive you, and see if you can put that back together, see if you can fix it. At the time, how realistic in your mind was that of going to happen at that time?
I thought this man was that was gonna be his time to laugh in my face, to be like, you know what, I knew you was gonna come back, laughing, and I was like, and literally, I was on the altar and I prayed, and I actually have a picture of the day that the Lord told me to go back, because the woman was praying for me, and she said, the Lord is finna send you back, and I'm like, she said, lift your hands and receive it, and I was like, I don't know if I want to receive it, where I'm going, but I did. I was obedient, and when he told me that, I said, Lord, I said, just cover my heart, because I know he's gonna laugh at me, because I know for a fact, just from my part, that I took him through hell. I know I did. And I wasn't ready to be laughed at. I wasn't. I just knew he was. So I didn't believe it. I did not. It had to be God to do it, because me personally, and I know he probably feel the same way. Him personally, he wouldn't have did it. He wouldn't have did it, because like I said, I cut the food, act the food, did the food, and if I was him, I probably wouldn't have did it. But it was a God thing.
And of course, I go without saying, today, your relationship is stronger than it's ever been.
It's stronger than it's ever been. And the little things that probably, little fires that used to be before, is not now. And I can truly say he is my best friend. I love him. We laugh. And when things come up, we now talk. I didn't talk before. I didn't communicate before, because of then, by being my life growing up in perverted situations, I just didn't know how. But now, that's my dog. That's my dog. That's the man that I'll marry over and over and over again, because we have divorced, we got married, we went down the aisle, but about 4-5 times. We did it. And we both said, this is the last time. One of us got to be going home to glory for it to happen. But yes. Yes, my books, both of them is on Amazon.com, and you can look up my name, Latonya Matthews. I do have a website. My website is connected to my Facebook page. It's up under Pachette Matthews. We do have, on there you will see my ministry phone, which you can call that phone number day or night. It's always open when that phone rings. I know it's time to pray. I know it's time for spiritual warfare. Prayer. I offer prayer. I post that on Facebook, and it's limited to 5 to 7 people, and that's every third Friday of every month. Well, every 3 weeks, and it always be on a Friday. And anytime on Facebook, they can look me up. Amazon, get the books. Even if they can't go on Amazon, I always keep books on me, and I'm always willing to meet somebody to purchase the book. But it is a blessing. I am Minister Latonya Matthews, and I thank you so much for tuning in and listening to my story, Silent No More.